So the Big Daddy Frontman's crazy choice to enter the game as a spy in Season 2 blew our minds, showing just how careful and elaborate the organization can be. But what if I were to tell you that the real reason he did this was much darker and more depressing? A new player enters the arena. So when Season 2 hit our screens, it was obvious right away that the show was cranking things up. The familiar brutality returned, but something was different this time around. There was this feeling that the games themselves were on shaky ground, like the whole system was about to collapse thanks to the efforts of Gihun and his team. Our main man coming back in was the first big shock. After winning the deadly competition and swearing he'd tear it all down, his choice to willingly jump back into the games as a player was already pretty bold after his initial schemes failed. Fans were ready for rebellion and revolution. What nobody saw coming was who player 001 would turn out to be, after spending so long working alongside Gihun. This twist immediately got everyone asking bigger questions. Why would someone with all that power, someone who once controlled life and death with just a button press, give it all up and put himself through the same dangers he used to inflict on others? It wasn't him rebelling against the VIPs or the system, it was a mission. A deeply personal, self-imposed mission that wasn't about survival or ambition, but something way more dangerous, a war against hope itself. What drove Inho to join the games? The answer is all about understanding Hwang Inho's complete mental downfall, a slow, devastating collapse that started long before Season 2 kicked off. Unlike those rich VIPs who watched the games for sick entertainment, Inho's connection to Squid Game came from loss, desperation, and the brutal realization that the world he believed in had completely screwed him over. Once a cop, a guy who wore a badge and fought for justice, G-Money's future nemesis had his life completely wrecked by corruption and personal tragedy. His wife dying from cirrhosis, his career going down the toilet, and the mountain of debt that followed pushed him right into the very games he would later run years later. But winning Squid Game didn't actually save him. It just emptied his soul even more. It taught him that no matter how hard you fought, the system was always rigged to crush hope. This core belief that humanity is beyond saving became the foundation of his whole identity as the frontman later in the story. And when Gihun showed up for a second round, carrying hope like some torch in the darkness, the Big Daddy Frontman saw a threat bigger than any rebellious player could hope to pose. He saw the one thing he couldn't allow to exist. Hope had to be stomped out once and for all, using despair as a weapon. By joining the games, the frontman positioned himself perfectly to crush Gihun's spirit from the inside. No lectures, no threats from a distance. He would stand right beside him, become his friend, pretend to support him, ensure he made it right to the finish line of his goals. And when the moment was right, he would rip that hope of victory out with his bare hands. Inho's strategy was brutal but precise. Gihun wouldn't just lose a rebellion, he would lose all forms of trust. He would lose faith. He would be forced to watch the people he tried to save turn on each other out of greed, fear, and the raw human instinct to survive. And Inho would be there every step of the way, making sure Gihun's defeat felt as personal and bitter as possible. Behind the Young Il disguise. The frontman's disguise as Young Il let him work in the shadows, pulling strings while pretending to be just another desperate contestant. For Gihun, Young Il became a symbol of hope, an ally who seemed to share his values, his dreams, and ultimately, his greatest mission. But to Front Daddy, every conversation was a knife in the back waiting to happen. Every shared moment was another layer of betrayal being carefully set up. By the time G-Money figured out the truth, it would be way too late. The frontman's plan was never just about winning a vote or surviving another game. It was about completely destroying someone emotionally, destroying hope. Inho's belief was simple, that hope is a lie, compassion is weakness, trust will get you killed. His experiences in the Squid Games, leading to the loss of his wife and unborn child, showed him that the world is too cruel for kindness and love. To survive in the new world he lived in, he had to kill any remaining part of himself that still believed otherwise. And Gihun, with his stubborn optimism, was a living reminder of the man Inho used to be. The only way forward, the only way to finally silence that voice inside him was to kill hope itself, not physically, but spiritually. Joining the games was his battlefield. Gihun's ideals were the target. And if Inho died in the process, well, that was even better. Because deep down, another truth was hiding deep within his heart. The secret death wish. Underneath all the frontman's careful cruelty, there was a heavy, quiet longing for death. Not the showy kind of violence that the games delivered to players, but a deeper, more personal ending to his tragic story. Inho wanted release, but he was too proud, too trapped in his twisted sense of duty to just quit. Instead, he created a situation where failure might finally come for him, where Gihun, if he somehow pulled it off, could be the instrument of Inho's destruction. It was a gamble full of contradictions, a hope for death wrapped in a mission to kill hope. And it made every move Front Daddy made in Season 2 way more tragic than villainous. But here's where things get even wilder. A slow betrayal. Throughout the games, Inho, disguised as Young Il, put himself in the perfect position to watch Gihun's every move. He fought alongside him, he celebrated victories with him, and during the six-legged pentathlon, something weird happened. For just a moment, Inho seemed to genuinely enjoy himself, not in a creepy, mocking way, but in a real, almost childlike way, cheering for his team, feeling that rush of camaraderie. While some fans think it was just simple acting, it was definitely something more. It was a glimpse of the man he might have been if his life had gone differently. A part of him remembered what it felt like to belong, to hope, to fight for something besides just staying alive. But Inho wasn't built for healing. That brief moment of joy only made the bitterness that followed even deeper. The knockout. As the rebellion grew stronger, Gi-hun started to believe real change was possible. The players were organizing, the guards were losing control, victory seemed almost within reach. That was when Front Daddy delivered the killing blow. He faked his own death as young Il, tricking Gi-hun into thinking he'd lost a crucial ally. Then at the critical moment, Inho revealed himself as the Frontman again. He shot Jungbei, Gi-hun's closest friend and ally in the rebellion, right in front of him. Not for survival, not for victory, but for pure emotional devastation. The message was crystal clear. Hope leads to ruin. There is no way to beat the system. That's something Inho knows well because he's been a slave to it for so many years. Choosing games over humanity. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was ideological. Inho's actions proved he had completely surrendered to Squid Game's brutal philosophy. Compassion, loyalty, and friendship were all illusions that could be weaponized and destroyed rather than elements of hope to cling to. Even when given a chance to switch sides, to join Gi-hun and tear down the system, Inho chose loyalty to the games instead. It was the only world he still understood. The Frontman's mask wasn't just a disguise, it was his true face. And by wearing it, he tried to kill any trace of the good man left in him, the man who regretted his actions and wanted to die. Despite how cold his choices were, there were some clear moments of hesitation, small cracks in the armor. When Inho killed Jungbei, there was a pause, a flicker of regret. Lee Byung-hun, who absolutely killed it playing Inho, confirmed that a small part of the Frontman was actually rooting for Gi-hun all along. A part that wanted G-Money to be right, to beat the system and prove that humanity could prosper. But the bigger, dominant part of him couldn't allow it. The cost of believing again was just too high, and he'd served the system for too long. And so, the Frontman crushed that last spark the only way he knew how. Through deep betrayal, living with what he's done. As Season 2 wrapped up, Inho took his place back at the top of the system he had infiltrated. But the victory felt empty. He had achieved his goal. He had destroyed Gi-hun's hope, crushed the rebellion, and taken back control of the games. But there was no triumph in his face, no satisfaction, only emptiness. Because deep down, Inho knew that no matter how many games he won, no matter how thoroughly he crushed others' dreams, he could never truly kill the memory of who he once was. Season 3 is surely going to take this story even further. Gi-hun, beaten up but still breathing, remains a threat through his influence on the other players. And Front Daddy, fully masked once again, stands ready to crush him if necessary. But a question hangs over the Frontman's future. Does he actually want to survive anymore? His actions in Season 2 suggest otherwise. Every move he made was soaked in self-destruction, even if it was hidden behind cunning and strategy. The games gave Inho a purpose after his old life fell apart, but now they're all he has left. If they collapse, he goes down with them. And maybe, on some level, that's exactly what he wants. Released images from Season 3 show us a pained, almost regretful look on his face as he holds his dark mask, seemingly taking it off just to be able to breathe. His guilt and regret are consuming him, and there's only one way out: death. For Inho, death isn't something to fear. It's a release he approaches carefully, even if he can't openly admit it. By forcing Gi-hun to face the ugliest parts of humanity, by making sure no rebellion can succeed, Inho believes he's proving a point. But he's also setting up his ultimate downfall, one betrayal at a time. When the system inevitably crashes, whether because of Gi-hun or through its own rotting toxicity, the Frontman will be ready, not to fight for survival, but to finally let go. In a world built on cruelty, maybe death is the only mercy he can still give himself. Instead of trying to torture others to avenge his own trauma, he'll finally let go and admit that he chose the wrong path all along, what the Frontman leaves behind. Inho's story isn't just about villainy, it's a slow-motion tragedy. A man who once fought for justice became the enforcer of the very evil he used to hunt down. A winner who found no joy in victory. A brother who shot his own family. A leader who ultimately led no one. And now, a player who plays not to win, but to lose. And in losing, to end the endless cycle of despair that his life became. G-Money might still carry hope into Season 3, but the Front Daddy carries something just as powerful. The certainty that some souls are too broken to save. So this is our wild theory on the real reason that the Frontman joined the games. What do you think? Is Inho approaching the end of his life willingly, or will it have to be ripped from him violently instead in another revolt? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, drop it a like, and if you want to see more Squid Game content and theories, click the video on screen now.